driven by technological change, family farms, neighborhood stores, and local factories have given way to agribusiness, national discount store chains, fast food franchises, and multinational corporations. Globalization and the relentless growth of government have dramatically altered our lives. William Irwin Thompson wrote, "At the edge of history, the future is blowing wildly in our faces, sometimes brightening the air and sometimes blinding us." He said, "In straining our industrial technology to the limit, we have in fact reached the very limit of that technology. Now, as we stand in the shadow of our success, there remains light enough to see that we are approaching a climax in human cultural evolution." I'm not a doomsday prophet, and I know we cannot turn back the clock. Rather, we must find ways to adapt and to compensate for our profound loss of social connectedness. And I know that restorative practices can play a critical role in doing just that, in restoring community and fostering relationships in an increasingly disconnected world. But to do so, we are going to have to re-examine why we do things the way we do them. A boy gets angry, curses at his teacher. She sends him to the assistant principal, who suspends him from school for 3 days. This kind of occurrence is commonplace in schools today. We lament the lack of civility, the loss of behavioral boundaries, the irresponsible parents who have raised this child, and we explain the punishment as holding the student accountable for his behavior. Accountable? How so? The punishment is passive. The student doesn't have to do anything. He stays angry at the teacher and the assistant principal. He thinks he's the victim. He doesn't think how it's affected others or about how he might make things right. And he returns to the classroom with nothing of his own. Niels Christie, the distinguished Norwegian criminologist, wrote a landmark essay entitled "Conflict is Property." He argued that our conflicts belong to us, and that courts and lawyers steal our conflicts, taking away our opportunity to resolve them, and robbing us of whatever benefits might come from that. Schools and administrators do the same. Both courts and schools miss a critical opportunity for people to resolve things with better results. The restorative justice movement was founded by people who were experimenting with meetings between victims and offenders to negotiate restitution agreements. They learned that the encounter was more important than the restitution, that both victims and offenders valued the opportunity to talk to each other and resolve their conflicts. I was speaking about restorative conferencing to an audience in Philadelphia when a woman from Africa said, "What you're describing is exactly what my father would do. As a chief, he would always bring everyone together to deal with a crime or conflict." Bonnie George of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation in British Columbia was a plenary speaker at our conference in Vancouver. She contrasted her people's indigenous justice system with the adversarial Western system in which strangers make decisions on behalf of others without emotional involvement. She said, "With our system, because of our relationships and our kinships, we're all connected to each other, one way or another, and those are the people that are making the decisions. Our goal is to restore balance and harmony within the community." So if restorative practices are the wave of the future, we may take comfort in knowing that they are also as old as the hills. If the assistant principal wanted to ensure the angry student would return appropriately to that teacher's classroom, he would organize a restorative conference to bring the offending student and his family together with the teacher and other students who were affected by the incident. Although it may surprise those unfamiliar with restorative conferencing, such meetings almost always produce positive outcomes, allowing the student and teacher to be restored to balance and harmony. In the area of child welfare, I remember a woman reporting on a family group conference for grandchildren. Child welfare was planning to put them in a foster home because the woman's daughter had serious depression that was impairing her ability to parent responsibly. Instead, someone suggested a family group decision-making conference. The grandmother and her extended family devised a plan for the children to stay with their depressed mom, but with rotating support from aunts and uncles and grandparents to ensure their well-being. Not only did the government save money by avoiding another foster placement, but the children were able to stay with those who loved them the most. There is a growing body of evidence supporting the use of restorative practices. In child welfare, restorative practices either avoid placements altogether or produce better outcomes. In criminal justice, restorative practices reduce offending and help victims heal. In schools, restorative practices reduce disciplinary incidents and improve school climate. In our own demonstration programs run by the Community Service Foundation and Buxmont Academy, empirical research found a particularly impressive outcome. Those delinquent and at-risk youth who spent 3 months or more in our restorative milieu were half as likely to offend. So we have created the IIRP Graduate School, and it has 3 critical roles. The first, of course, is education. We offer master's degrees to help educators, youth counselors, and other professionals meet the challenge of today's world, for all too many have been prepared for a world that no longer exists. The fact that we now teach about restorative practices at the most advanced level of professional development will benefit not only our own graduate students, but will influence other institutions of higher education to pay attention to this new discipline. The second role is research. We will strive to meet the highest standards of scientific inquiry. And the third role is communication. We will generously share the exciting potential of restorative practices with others so that all of us may collaboratively change the world. I say change the world unabashedly. We must not be embarrassed by our optimism. Who could have imagined 30 years ago that we would be educating probation officers in Romania, police in Iceland, law professors in Costa Rica, child care workers in South Africa, prosecutors in Jamaica, and educators in Hong Kong? Or that our educational efforts would assist the Thai Ministry of Justice in carrying out more than 17,000 restorative conferences, diverting young people from incarceration. Or that Hull, England, a city of 250,000, would be using our programs to educate 23,000 social workers, educators, and others serving children and young people to create the world's first restorative city. Or that I would be standing here today, accepting responsibility for leading the world's first graduate school wholly dedicated to restorative practices. So don't let the naysayers get you down. The world needs our vision of hope. The human race now holds in its mortal hands the power to tinker with the genetic underpinnings of life, to alter the climate of the planet, to extinguish whole species, and to wield as weaponry the awesome energy of the stars. Our technological skills have outpaced our social skills. But restorative practices can correct the imbalance. No, we are not pursuing an unrealistic utopian dream. We recognize that conflict is integral to being human. What we propose, however, is to get better at managing conflict and to minimize conflict by proactively restoring community in an increasingly disconnected world.